Hello.
Hello everybody. Welcome back to Paws webinars.
Yeah, it's a it's an honor to get Jayaprakash once again for us, and this time he is doing a whole session, and which is again fabulous. So he's an award-winning photographer.
Hello
And
everybody.
I do
No.
you?
It's not from
Yeah,
yours.
okay. So it's about there is a photographer part of him, and there is a person part of him. It's so difficult to see what I like the most. I must say he's a spectacular photographer, but beyond that he's an awesome human. That's what makes him so special. And Absolutely, once again, I definitely need to say there's no attitude, no ego, and so humble, down to earth person. So it whenever we spend some time together, whether it is online or when we see we still haven't got a chance to spend time together in real, though we have say hi to each other a couple of times from Masai Mara. But hoping to see Jay soon in and spend some time with you. There is a lot to learn from you as a person and as a photographer. So, Herby, what is the next step? Are we going to go ahead with?
Yeah, let's invite Jayaprakash.
Thank you, Nisha. Thank you, Hermes. Nisha, you are too kind with your words.
I'm being honest.
Uh, well, I really don't know how to even respond to the introduction you gave for me. All I can say is thank you. And yes, it's really unfortunate we've never really met or spent time face to face. So hopefully, um, I know
Hopefully.
Hermes has already been to Borneo,
Indonesia.
but there are some special places which you guys have not seen in Borneo, and hopefully,
Yeah.
when the opportunity arises, maybe you guys should come with me.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Sure.
And COVID is that's one destination in my list right after COVID, because after seeing your images and Hermes images and some other photographers in the friend circle, seeing those images, it's so inspiring. These animals are so beautiful.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So maybe I'll talk about that a little bit as we move forward.
Okay.
Uh, Thank you everybody for joining us. Hope everybody's safe and healthy. Um, I know Nisha just gave you a brief introduction, but I thought I'll just share a little bit about my journey so far as a photographer. So I have been a hobbyist photographer for probably a little more than a decade. Um, I think like everybody else, I was chasing kingfishers and birds in lakes across Bangalore. And since my folks and I was born and brought up in the Nilgiris, I spent a lot of time, chasing birds and some langurs and stuff like that around Nilgiris. So that's how I kind of honed my skills as a photographer in the in the digital side of the new era of photography. Um, all along my ITS career, I always wanted to, at some point, do something like this for a living full time. It took some time. It took me almost 19 and a half years before I decided that I wanted to quit and pursue photography, travel photography as an avenue, as a full-time career. Uh, 2016, I moved to Singapore, me, my wife, and end of 2016 was kind of a turning point in my career. I'm sure a lot of you all have heard lines like this in the past, right? Sometimes a single photograph can just change your life overnight. So
Yeah.
I don't want to, I mean, I would be lying if I would say I was a great photographer and, it's not just one image that made my career and all that stuff. But the fact is, one image kind of turn things around. What probably takes several years for a lot of photographers, for me, one image kind of almost like a shortcut to growth. It kind of put me on the fast track and moved me kind of up the value chain. But what I realized was winning an award, wonderful, great feeling. All of a sudden, you're published everywhere, and a lot of people know you. Social media, all of a sudden, from nowhere, one morning I wake up and I see my numbers have all just gone crazy. But then I realized a year down the line that it was easy to get there, but it was a lot harder to sustain the reputation you have. Because what happens is typically now the expectations are so high that people expect you to be like coming out with like magical images every time you share some of your images. But the fact is, it really doesn't work that way. So I'm going to probably somewhere down the line share my approach as to how I go about what goes on in my head, what I'm thinking when I'm approaching photography. So there's not going to be a very a technical session, because I think there are loads of technical sessions online. As a photographer, I met some people in the last 6 or 7 years who've I think it's important to sometime we don't give enough credit to some of the teachers. When I say teachers, they may not be direct teachers, right? Especially in the field of art, a lot of times we just learn by looking at others' work or just observing other people. It need not be necessarily direct interaction. So there have been a lot of influential people who influenced. So at some point, I think my photography style also changed around 2017. I think that's when I said, I want to focus more on storytelling. Because around the time is when a lot of editors, a lot of magazines were reaching out to me. So I realized most editors were always looking for a story. So a lot of people ask me, how do I get so many of my images published? So I think the key is pretty much all my images published had some kind of a story to tell. And that's what pretty much everybody is looking for. So if you're a photographer out there who's just beginning, or you're a hobbyist, first of all, I want to tell some of my hobbyist friends, because a lot of people who are my hobbyist friends tell me, oh, I'm just a hobbyist, man. I don't expect to create amazing images. So I keep telling my hobbyist friends, you've invested in time and money, right? You've invested in equipment. You're spending money to travel the world to take photographs. I know you're just a hobbyist, but why not excel? So when you've invested so much of time and money, you might as well do a better job, and don't do a mediocre job. So this is what I keep telling my friends, don't hide behind the hobbyist tag. Oh, I'm just a hobbyist kind of thing, Okay, I'm just speaking my mind out. Okay, so I don't have any speech prepared for today. So I'm just sharing just my thoughts that's there in my mind. Okay, so this is the image that kind of changed my life overnight. And I don't want to get into too much about how and what happened on this image, because I think too many published in too many places and too many stories published around it. But the brief here was, just to give you a brief idea, was my interest in primates did not happen over a period of time. It only happened in 2016. I had never seen an orangutan in my life. My first view of an orangutan face-to-face was in the Singapore Zoo. So that was kind of a turning point. So first time I was to the Singapore Zoo, I saw some incredible primates in the Singapore Zoo, and I was like absolutely fascinated. So that's where my journey on primates actually started. So I was kind of inspired by what I saw there. In fact, if you've been following my work, you would have like the red shank langurs, or the Delacoste langur, or the grey shat langur, the gibbons. So Singapore Zoo was pretty much like where I kind of got introduced to these animals. And then that's when I started researching about them and trying to find out. And then I started realizing, is it really possible for me to actually see them in the wild? So I spent a lot of time on the internet chasing people, because in the last, I think, about 4.5 years, I've done very few safari kind of photography. Most of my photography has been on foot, camping and trekking and stuff like that. Also, I realized a lot of these destinations that I was trying to go to had absolutely zero tourism. There was nothing established, no guides who I could call and set up. So I did a lot of research, started writing to a lot of people, wrote to some people in WWF who had worked on some of these langurs. I think I remember especially the red shank langur. I'll probably show you the picture a little later. I think almost after a year, a guy who had actually worked with the red shank langurs as part of a WWF project responded to me after a year. I don't know how he remembered to respond to an email of mine after a year, but nevertheless. And then it just happened. And then, okay, probably let me come back to when I come back to those slides. So this is the red shank langur. I mean, absolutely. I think it was also voted as one of the most beautiful langurs in the world. Hamis, I know you also take an interest in primates. You should go see this guy. Absolutely adorable, absolutely stunning monkey, and the habitat is so unique. These monkeys actually right now live on a seaside mountain. On one side it's the sea, and on the one side it's the mountain. The overall, I think, the population that I'm aware of right now is approximately about in the range of 300 to 500, primarily spread across Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. But I think the largest population is in Vietnam, very close to Da Nang. In fact, it's almost like a 20-minute drive to this place if you're staying in any hotel in Da Nang. It's called the Monkey Mountain. And the reason why they call the Monkey Mountain is because this mountain where these langurs live used to be a US Army base during the Vietnam War. Apparently, I heard stories that those days, some of the army guys used to just shoot these langurs for fun, just with guns, because it's crazy, right? So that's why it's called the Monkey Mountain. In fact, the Americans kind of named it the Monkey Mountain. It's like a little nickname they have for this mountain. It's a very, very unique landscape. I think in the last few years, they've done a reasonably good job in conservation of these langurs. There were some massive resort projects that were in the pipeline. Thankfully, I think the government has come back and they've rejected some of those projects. Otherwise, this whole habitat would have been converted into like a massive resort, especially since places like Vietnam survive on tourism. This is an old world monkey. Obviously, I mean, if you're following monkeys, you'll know it's an old world monkey. They're completely arboreal. I think I've never seen them on land. From my last discussion with some of the folks at WWF who've been working on this, they claim almost 70% of the population has already been lost in the last 30 years. So imagine, right? I mean, just 20% of the population just left, primarily hunted for food, traditional medicine, and obviously a lot of them, because of habitat loss, we lost a lot. One of the most calm primates I've ever seen in my life. You will never see them screaming, or you never see them getting angry. They come across like super polite. I've never seen, primates are usually very, very animated sometimes, the expressions are very, very animated. These guys are like some of the most calmest animals. I mean, they're shy, but I mean, they're very silent. The whole there are a few more species of the same langur. We have the black shank langur, the gray shank langur. All of them are absolutely stunning langurs. So far, I have not been able to find the black shank langur because it's really hard to find them. But I managed to see the gray shank langur. I'll probably show you. Just look at the habitat. It's so beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. Yeah. You can see some babies on the trees. It's not very clear, but there are two little babies on the tree. Yeah. This was a lucky. This particular image was on my first trip. I was like just blown away. Just the way they were just moving across the canopy. You can see the huge male. This is a little family. Usually they are in smaller groups of families of 10 to 12. Yeah, there's another image. I was very lucky on my first trip to actually find them actually on the first day, because thankfully the guy I was working with over there, he's been tracking them for quite some time, so he kind of had a fair idea as to where to find them. Another interesting species that I spent some time with are these, they call the yellow-cheeked gibbons or the golden-cheeked gibbons. I visited a conservation center there where a group of conservationists have been working simultaneously on the sun bear, which is a smaller bear compared to the sloth bear that we see in India, and pangolins, and especially these monkeys. So after I spent about 6 days, I managed to get some images. When I was actually over dinner, I was sharing some of these images with those conservationists, because usually they are not photographers. Most of the conservationists, they were like absolutely excited when they saw this image, and they started talking amongst themselves. I'm like, hey guys, what's happening? Because they started talking in the local language. I'm like, dude, what's happening? What are you guys talking about? Why are you so excited? Then they told me that the male that you see, the yellow-cheeked gibbon male that you see, was actually a rescued gibbon, which they released after 6 months of rehab, when he was like a really tiny fellow, into the wild.
Okay.
So they said they had not seen him in the last 2 years. So they were like so excited when they saw the picture that the guy was still around. So I think I'm just a little lucky with primates, because every time people tell me, oh, it's hard to find them, somehow when I go, it just happens. I don't know how and why. So maybe I don't know. So I mean, I'm probably a little blessed when it comes to primates. I'll share another story of another monkey. It's later on. Okay, this is the gray shank langur. Just look at the colors. Can you imagine a monkey which has got a bluish face, yellow eyes, unbelievably beautiful monkey? But this is a super sensitive monkey, because they've not seen most of them have not seen many humans in their life. So I could only get 2 shots after chasing these monkeys for 7 days. Imagine 7 days, the monkeys are there on top of your head, okay? And you're walking down in the canopy. But it was like really frustrating, because every day I know they're there, they're moving around in the canopy, but not a single shot. And every time you stamp on a little twig on the ground, that little noise is enough for these monkeys to just disappear. And that's it. Then you've lost them. Just managed to, my favorite lens range while I shoot primates, typically some of the shots were shot with Canon. So 100-400 was my favorite lens for most of my primate images. One, because the zoom range is a little versatile, because sometimes with the prime, while I used to have the 400 prime, you kind of get stuck. So I actually shot this, managed to find a small opening between some leaves to get this shot, just 2 shots. But again, it was just a amazing feeling end of the day to come back home with at least 1 or 2 images. I think I've never seen so many mosquitoes in my life. This was the only trip when I was. It was raining throughout, and it was probably the worst mosquito trip I ever had in my life.
Where was this taken?
This was taken in Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll if you're interested, I'm happy to set you up with the right people to go see some of these absolutely interesting ones. And I was really surprised because there are not many people traveling in these directions, because unlike a lot of other countries, Southeast Asia is relatively a cheaper destination for people who like wildlife to travel to. But the only problem is you're not going to have the comfort of sitting in a safari jeep and shooting. You have to like slog it out. I mean,
and I came to know that a lot of people like the cats than all these small species.
yeah.
That's the social media. I believe it's the trend. But when you won the award, there was a huge followers for the monkeys. All
Okay.
of that definitely increased.
Okay, you will be surprised. Okay, I mean, see, I don't blame people, because what typically happens is, if there are some guys who are famous doing tigers, let's say, most people tend to just follow what's happening in the scene, right? And I think it's a very natural thing to happen. We all get influenced sometimes by what we see around us, but you guys will be shocked at how much people love primates, especially in the US, UK, Canada, and all these countries. And the reason I say that is because in the last 3.5 years, I don't want to give you guys absolute numbers, but I have sold so many prints to people from these countries, and these are just primates.
Okay.
So that's the potential for primates. So I think it's kind of an ignored area by a lot of photographers.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I love cats. Who doesn't like cats? But I think the approach was important. So a lot of people ask me what my approach is. So I don't randomly just go to different places and take photographs. So most of my approach with photography is like I treat everything as a little project. I like to stick with one species for a longer period of time because it's not rocket science, right? The amount of interesting images you'll be able to create is directly proportional to the amount of time you spend, right? So that's how I look at it, right? So I usually say, okay, if I want to work on red shank langur, then I focus on working on a body of work on red shank langur. It's not like just 1 or 2 images. For example, I still have a lot of images which I hold on for print sales or for exhibitions, or even sometimes competitions and stuff like that. I don't necessarily share all my images on social media all the time. So there's tremendous potential on primates, and I kind of sometimes dislike people who differentiate between good species, bad species, and I hear people say things like, for example, here in Singapore, we have a lot of gray herons. Okay. One of the most ignored species. But then I realized there's so much more you can do photographically with gray herons. So for me as a photographer, when I look at something through my viewfinder, for me, it's not only the subject that matters. So I think as photographers, if you're a newcomer and if you want to improve your photography, look at every frame in a more holistic manner. I think when we start, all of us have the fear of missing, right? The minute you see something, you have the fear that, oh, you're going to miss it. So it's usually blind shooting, right? Point and shoot. 10 frames per second, 20 frames per second, and hopefully you'll get some sharp images. But then in the process, a lot of time we forget to actually spend a few seconds to actually visualize the whole view in front of you. Sometimes just adding an extra leaf, which is orange in color and leaf in color, into your frame can just transform the image completely from a super dull, boring image to a mind-blowing image. Sometimes just using plants, leaves, colors in the form of a foreground bouquet makes your images, transform your images to a more unique image. For example, I personally like this picture of the great tank langur because there's a lot more to it than just the langur. I could have created, for example, let's say, just an amazing portrait of this langur. Yeah, would have been nice, but then after a point, it's boring. So a few years ago, I went to Japan with some friends. On the end of the Japan trip, they were all showing me their pictures and asking me to give them some feedback and stuff like that. And they had like 1 million portraits, okay, of everything. So my first question that I asked them was, where is Japan in your pictures? Right? Most of us do this. We go and we're so absorbed by getting as close as possible to the animals using long lenses. We just forget to embrace the beautiful weather, the beautiful colors, the beautiful feel, the atmosphere, the feeling of cold, the feeling of warmth, rain, dust. All of these elements actually have more importance for me as a photographer, because I consider myself as an artist and not just a documentary photographer, because I don't see the point in every year going and photographing the same bird on the same perch. You know what I'm saying, right? Every year you go to the same country, you sit in the same hide, photograph the same bird. You look at pictures from 2 years ago, it's the same perch, same bird, right? I really don't see the point in investing money to do something like that. So for me, it's important to visualize. So usually before I travel to any place, I go and see what work has already been done in a space, in that space. That kind of gives me a baseline as to, okay, there are already these amazing pictures. So now you know that, okay, for example, in my case, I don't see the point in recreating those pictures which another few people have already made beautiful pictures. So for me now, I start thinking, okay, now how do I bring a new perspective to the species? How do I bring a new perspective to photography, from this country or from this space or with the species? So that's how I start visualizing. And I'm a very visual person. Sometimes I wake up dreaming of images. A lot of my discussions with some of my best friends, photographer friends, even if we are sitting over a drink, is, what's your dream image? What's your dream image? And then after that, we spend hours just talking to each other, figuring out how to bring your dream image to life. You have an image in your life, right? Image in your mind. Okay, I want to take a picture of it, and then we invest a lot of time on figuring out how do we make it happen. So that's how I work. So that's my concept. A simple example is, right now in Singapore, I live very close to the beach. The beach is just a 6-minute walk from my house, and there's a small patch of mangrove forest, and we have otters here. The otters usually come out from the mangroves through the water into the sand, and sometimes play in the sand, roll in the sand, and they kind of like to rub on the grass as well. There's a little lawn there. So for me, in my mind, I've been visualizing that, okay, I want to get a shot of these otters. You've seen those half underwater, half above water kind of images, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I want to do a wide angle shot of these otters coming out of the water, but half underwater, half above the water. So I got a underwater housing. I set up. I'm trying to stay a little away and kind of trigger my camera with like a phone app. So I've been trying to shoot this image for the last 3 months, but I've failed till date. But for me, I know that image will happen sometime. If not now, at some point it'll happen, because I'm going to continue to chase it. But I know the day that image happens, it's going to be a mind-blowing image.
I agree.
Yeah.
So that's usually my process, my thought process towards photography. I'm constantly thinking how I can create a new perspective. Sometimes it's not about chasing exotic species. You can still do unbelievably amazing images with some of the most common species. So a lot of people think they have to go to tiger reserves or far away to, capture amazing species. But I think you can actually shoot interesting images just in your backyard. It's as long as you're more concept driven and you try and bring your ideas to life. Anyway, so this is moving on from there. I'm just trying to squeeze in some of my ideas in between some of these primate stories. So you guys will love this habitat. Okay, just look at this habitat. This is the Delacoste langur. Unbelievable. These monkeys have never seen life outside of these limestone mountains. And I'm going to show you the location. And I'm going to show you how I shoot these monkeys. This is a wetland reserve. Imagine a massive wetland reserve and limestone mountain right in the center of the wetland reserve. So it's just unbelievably beautiful. These are some old images. This was my first trip. My first trip was a miserable trip with these langurs, because I couldn't see them. I spent 4 days, no luck. I came back. My second trip was a good one when I got some images. Sorry, going back to this one again. I also did a short film on this langur. The interesting fact is, I wanted to study more about these langurs to really find out, where is the origin and stuff like that. Well, unfortunately, there's absolutely no information about how these langurs actually reached these limestone mountains. Nobody knows. There's no record. There's no history of how these monkeys actually came and started living in these. Usually, you can track history of a lot of species, because depending on the changing landscapes of time, species have moved here and there. But the species absolutely has no history of how they managed to come here. Again, these monkeys were being killed.
Other places?
I'm sorry?
Can you find them in any other places?
No, this is the only place where you can find it. There's no more. I mean, there are only about 200 to 250 of them alive.
Okay.
And this is the only place you can see them in the world. They're not anywhere else. So thankfully, I think about several years ago, the government declared this like a reserve. In the previous picture, right, you see these are all wetlands. So those days, the farmers used to cultivate rice here. Okay. But then when the wetland was declared, the whole community came together. There are a few villages nearby. The whole community came together and decided to let go of their farming land without any. Usually, what happens in India, right? In many places, right? I mean, people don't want to let go of the land. But then I was shocked when I spoke to a lot of these boatmen who work around this area are all people who used to grow rice in the same water that you're seeing in this picture. All of them have now taken up ecotourism as a way of a living, and they love these monkeys. They're almost like the guardians of these monkeys in these mountains. But unfortunately, what's happening is Vietnam economy is booming, real estate is booming. These limestones are actually I mean, if you know about cement, limestone is used to make cement.
Yeah.
So there's a demand for cement is just gone multifold in this country. So they've started actually destroying an entire side of these mountains, and they've converted them to quarries. And again, the government is obviously involved in this, right? Because it's almost a reserve already. So a lot of places in Southeast Asia have this problem where the countries are struggling to kind of balance between economy versus environment. It's tricky. It's very tricky. Even with, for example, if you're talking about palm oil issues in places like Indonesia and Malaysia, I think almost 45-50% of the country's revenue depend on palm oil. On one hand, while it's easy for us to say, oh, we should stop palm oil, this is wrong, they should all shut it down. So basically, that means millions of people with no food, because people live on palm oil farming and stuff like that. So it's a pretty complex situation. So now I think they're talking about palm oil produced in the right manner. So there's a lot of discussions happening around it, and also a lot of corporates have come forward now and have started supporting and helping and stuff like that. I'm sure you heard of the brand called Lush, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know. I'm sure at least she will know, because it's a very she kind of a product. So you will be shocked. Lush spent so much money on acquiring a few hundred acres of land for orangutan conservation. It's so nice. So a lot of corporates are coming forward these days. This is another shot of the red shanglango. This was my first shot of the male. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, moving on to another favorite place of mine, Sulawesi. I'm not sure if you all have been there. That's where I shoot the black-crested macaques, one of my favorite macaques. They're also my favorite macaques because they're probably one of the most friendliest macaques I've seen. Again, the same story, like everywhere else in the world. They were killed for bushmeat. In fact, you'll be surprised, even now they're being killed for bushmeat. There is a market in Indonesia where you will still find bushmeat of the monkeys. It's crazy. This is another beautiful place. On one hand, you have the volcanic mountains you can see in the background. On one hand, you have the rainforest. On one hand, it's a sea. It's a beautiful triangle. Amazing, right? Imagine a place where everything is there. You have a mountain on one side, you have a rainforest on one side, and it's like a little corner triangle. And one side, it's the sea. This was a drive. This photo was taken by my guide when I was actually going to a small mangrove backwaters, where there were some really cool kingfishers. So after I finished my langur shoots, I was going there. Here's an example of how cute these monkeys are. So what me and my contact used to do was, he used to wait till about 7:45, 8 in the evening in the forest, just to see where the monkeys sleep. So usually what happens is, most primate species, if you know where they sleep, then it's easy to find them the next day, right? Because okay, this is where they're sleeping. So we used to wait till about 7:45, 8 for these monkeys to go to sleep, and then we used to head back to our place of stay. So next morning, we know exactly where to find them. 7 days from 6:30 in the morning to 7:45 in the evening, all I did was just follow this group of about 120 of these monkeys. I think after a point, either they were like bored to see my face every day, or
Treat them like
they were absolutely comfortable in my presence. These monkeys are not so cool that they will get so close to you as well. But I think it was really nice to have some kind of relationship with these absolutely adorable black-crested macaques. This was the last morning. I actually, if you see, because of the volcanoes nearby, it's black sand there. Very interesting landscape. So these monkeys were. I was actually there in the morning to shoot some sunrise. So I didn't even carry my 400mm lens, nothing. I just came there in the morning because it was my last morning. So I said, I'm going to shoot some, because the sunrise is amazing in that place. I wanted to shoot some sunrise. So I just came with my wide angle lens, and I was sitting there and I'm just waiting for the sunrise. The sunrise happened. I took some shots. And after a point, I realized something is pulling my rain jacket from behind. and I turn around and I see these tiny little babies. Oh, it was just it's some of these experiences are very hard to express in words. You just have to
Yeah.
kind of feel it, So
Yeah.
it was a beautiful experience. But I also had a bad experience on this trip because um, there were two alpha males. One alpha male had kind of become a loner because he was trying to take over the other alpha male, which was kind of running the show. So there was one alpha male technically managing 120 odd of these macaques. Imagine, completely in control. And every time these monkeys go out, they go out as a group.
Okay.
And the alpha male will wait for every monkey to move, and he'll be the last person to move. And there are so many occasions, it's so interesting. They're so human-like, there's so many occasions when I've seen the alpha male go and tap mothers and babies on their shoulders or on their hands. Basically, he's asking them to move. It's time to move, because what happens is he wants the whole troop to move as a group all the time. It's amazing to watch when you just sit and observe these monkeys. So there's one point when I got very close to a mother and baby when the alpha male, he actually slapped me on my calf muscles. You can see I was actually wearing shorts because this place is extremely, extremely humid. So I was wearing shorts, and the alpha male actually slapped me on my calf muscles. I think because I spent so much time with them, after a point, I took it for granted that, they're like family kinds. I've been with them for so long. But then, again, these are simple lessons you learn. A wild animal is always a wild animal, so never get too close. Sometimes you think you are comfortable and they're comfortable. Sometimes maybe not. So I got close to a mother and baby, and the alpha male was sitting right there, and he was sitting right there for almost an hour and a half. He had no problem sitting next to me. But the minute I got close to the mother and baby, he slapped me on my calf. So that was some lessons you learn on the field. So it's one of those. Here is the alpha male, absolutely stunning guy, right? Just look at his size, look at his muscles, and he looks so human, There's another mother baby. There's a little one on the beach. Okay, and this is one time I was experimenting with different perspectives. So I was thinking, okay, it's too difficult to get too close to these monkeys, but how do I take something different? How do I photograph something different? So that's when I actually did it even before I went on this trip. So I actually bought a remote control car, plugged in a GoPro. I don't think I have the images here, but I actually shot this with a remote control car with a GoPro on it, and used a universal remote from a distance. So I did a sequence of about 15 or 20 images. It was fun. Initially, when I sent the car, these guys were a little skeptical. They were all just quietly looking at it from a distance. Then slowly, one by one, started coming, checking out the car and the camera and stuff like that. So as a photographer, my advice to you would be push yourself to be more creative. Don't be happy with mundane shots or head-on tiger shot. I mean, no big deal, right? It's been done like a million times by a million people. Think of something new. Think of something creative. Think of, but again, it may not be always possible. But composition-wise, I think there's tremendous potential, irrespective of what scenario it is, to be yourself, to be unique. You don't have to follow what other people are doing. Another favorite monkey of mine, Proboscis monkeys. I was very lucky. I think last Feb or last March, I guess. One of my concepts in my mind was to photograph these monkeys swimming across the river. And again, as always, I was very lucky. A whole family of proboscis monkeys swam across the river, mother with a baby on her back. It was just unbelievably amazing sighting. These monkeys are some of the most amazing swimmers in the primate world. They can swim. I actually have video footage of these guys jumping from approximately 40 feet high from the trees into the river and then swim across the river. It was just crazy. That was again one of my most favorite experiences, because every time I go to Borneo, every time I meet the guides, every time the rangers are passing by on the canoes, the only question I keep asking them is, have you seen Probus's monkey swim? Have you seen Probus's monkey swim? And I think they were tired of listening to me, asking me the same question, because I meet the same people I go, because I used to go almost like once in 2 months, and I'm asking them the same questions. But then,
lucky to see that.
yeah, but there's a saying, when you start visualizing something in your mind, right, and you keep visualizing it, it'll actually happen at some point. I don't know how it. I mean, obviously, it's not science, but I'm a believer in God, so it works. Moving on. After a point, I realized when I was working with some NGOs. I was actually speaking to the Borneo orangutan survivor CEO from Germany. He was here in Singapore. He came to meet me, and actually they wanted me to be an ambassador with the organization. So he was here, and then we spoke. And then in one of our discussions, he said, every time we think about primates or we think about orangutans, it's usually the sad stories that comes to mind, right? Everybody talks about, orangutans, habitat loss, orangutans being shot, orangutans being killed, and stuff like that. So he said, JP, how do we show primates in a more bright light? How can we show them as magnanimous, larger than life creatures which have a personality? Just like when you do human portraits and stuff like that, right? You want to show somebody as like a strong person, not a weak person, right? So
Yeah.
how do you take a picture of a person and portray him as a strong person, right? Not by showing muscles. I'm saying photographically, right? So that's when I started working on some of these images, because they wanted to do an exhibition in Germany, a very large scale exhibition. So they said, can you help us photograph primates in a way that people don't look at them and feel sad and bad? For a change, I want to people look at them and say, wow, kind of a thing. So after that, I started thinking differently. So then I spent a lot of time just observing these animals just to get the expression right. Because to do something like this, timing was the key. And there are no second chances in the wild, right? Because you're not shooting in a studio, remember that. And this is commissioned work. So I have a timeline, right? So I spend a lot of time just observing their behavior. So I know what kind of expression would give the photograph, the personality of the animal or an animal that is larger than life, humongous, or the feeling of, big. I will show you some more images a little later. Coming back to the next story. This shot happened. This shot happened in the Malaysia side of Borneo. Interesting fact was, this female, she actually came down the tree to attack me, and I was really scared at that point, because from nowhere she just came down to attack me. Thankfully, the rangers were there with me, and that's when the ranger later on told me the story of what happened. So this female, not the baby, this female that you see, she lost both her parents right in front of her eyes. That both her parents were shot and killed with guns and bullets right in front of her eyes, and she was found lying next to a dead mother's body. She is still not forgotten it. So now anybody points anything towards her, she thinks it's danger, or maybe she thinks it's a gun. So even if you point like a camera or a lens, she just hates it. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the story behind it. The good thing is, she's a mother herself today. She's got an absolutely adorable little baby when I met her. Okay. So that's the little story of this little fellow. Okay, here's another image. This was again a very deliberate image where I said, I was just talking about where we wanted to show them as a magnanimous, larger than life, stunning creature. So I had to like deliberately compose them in this way to just make them, give you that feeling that, this guy is like a massive guy just staring at you guys. So you can see what we did with those pictures. So the whole idea was to do this exhibition in Germany, right? I mean, this is crazy. They actually printed these pictures. That's a 3-storied building in the background. Okay, it's a 3-storied cottage. So imagine how big they built. But I love the concept because their intention was to use these images as a conversation starter. Remember those days in India when Vodafone and Hutch came? You had these huge, massive ad boards where they start with just a question mark. After a little bit, after some time, they'll introduce a little bit. After some time, they'll introduce a little bit. Later on, you realize what the advertisement was, right?
Yeah.
So something like that. Our concept was to put these images on massive scale in this place. So when people see everybody now, all of a sudden, it's like a conversation starter, right? Everybody wants to know, what is this animal? What is it doing here? So that was a good starting point to start talking about what's happening with these animals in Indonesia and Malaysia. So it was all part of a fundraising effort. So it was a very, very interesting. So this guy, you see, Daniel, he's one of the CEOs of the Germany chapter of Borneo Orangutan Survival. Borneo BOS is the largest orangutan foundation, conservation foundation in the world today. They have approximately 415 orangutans right now in rehab. I'm sure you watched the Jungle School videos and all that, right? You guys should go online and Google orangutan jungle school. It's amazing how the whole rehab process works and how these orangutans are taught and then sent back to the wild. Here's another one of my favorite experiences. This little fellow was absolutely adorable. His mother was around. I was the only guy at that point in the river. There was nobody else. He was so he was either fascinated by me or he really didn't like me. It could be one of those, right? I mean, I'm not a animal mind reader, so I don't know. So I'm just assuming. But he would go back to his mom. 2 minutes later, he would come back and he would make all these little faces at me. And then again, he would go back to his mom. After a few minutes, again, he would come all the way. Her mom was quite far away, almost probably 50, 60 meters away. He would come all the way to the edge of the river, look for me, make these faces. It was interesting because literally it was like playing with kids. I started hiding behind the tree and I would just put my face around the tree and he would react to me in a similar fashion. Very, very cute experience. Very, very memorable moment for me. Okay, here is the high-stake monkey. This is one of the most interesting monkeys I photographed and probably one of my toughest photographic trip ever in my life. So these monkeys, there are only about 150 to 200 alive on the Vietnam-China border. It took me 2 years just to get permission to go to this location because because it's very close to a Chinese army base, so it's considered dangerous and it's not a good place to go unless you have some really good local support and you know people. But what I was shocked was I was working on a project with the Singapore Zoo. And I was casually having a discussion with the CEO of Singapore Zoo, one Mr. Mike, and he enjoys photography. So I was sharing some of my pictures, and then I was generally telling him that I want to shoot all the snub-nosed monkeys because there's some amazing snub-nosed monkeys like the golden ones in China and stuff like that. So that's when he said, "Yeah, we've actually invested in a lot of funds in conservation of the token snub-nosed monkey." I'm like, Jesus, why didn't you tell me like a year ago, right? I've been trying to just see these monkeys. And then I realized Singapore Zoo had invested some money and there were 2 research guys actually working on these monkeys, studying these monkeys. So then just things happened. Another friend of mine also knew somebody at Flora and Fauna International. If you know, Flora and Fauna International is a large conservation organization, especially in Southeast Asia. They do a lot of good work. So he also knew somebody. That finally, we managed to get there. And one of my toughest trips. Why? Because it was one whole day of mountain climbing just to get to a base camp, and we had quite a decent amount of luggage to carry up. We crossed 2 rivers, and then we had to climb a mountain, a massive mountain, super, super, super hot and humid. So I think both me and my friend were like completely dehydrated and almost fell sick. And then we realized where we reached is just the base camp. That's where these guys are living, and these guys are living off the land. No luxuries. It's a small hut. They had their own small poultry farm, so they have chicken for food and stuff like that. And then they were growing some vegetables, like a small vegetable garden, and they were living off the land because the nearest place for them to even buy a chocolate or sugar or anything is one day away. So anyway, so because we were going, we got some ration, and we managed to get there, and then we realized it's only the base camp, and then from there we had to like trek half a day every day up the mountain again just to see these guys. No trails, no tracks, no walking tracks, nothing. These are limestone mountains. So basically it's like you're trying to do some rock climbing with all your cameras and all that hanging on your neck and on your body. So one of my hardest trips. A lot of falls, a lot of cuts, a lot of bruises, but I think it was completely worth it. I actually came back and fell sick, completely dehydrated. But I only got 2 pictures of these monkeys. Again, super sensitive. They just disappear. And unlike other terrains, here you can't even follow the monkeys because literally for you to take 5 or 6 steps is like squeezing through stones, squeezing through rocks. It's like it'll probably take 10 minutes. I'm sorry?
Was there on the way?
Was there other? No, literally nothing. Literally nothing. Yeah, some birds maybe. Some birds maybe, but literally nothing. Again, lost for traditional medicine and habitat loss and stuff like that. But there's some wonderful conservation happening. One of my dream future projects in the pipeline that I've been thinking of is to do like a short documentary on them. So, but it's going to be a very time consuming process. But I'm thinking about it. So I very lately started doing videos and started shooting some documentary because I see because for me I look at myself as a storyteller. So as a storyteller, I realized you don't have to do extensive 2 hours, 1 hours long films, right? You can do quick hit stories. These days, people don't have the patience to even watch a 1 hour film. Everybody wants everything small, short, on your mobile phone kinds. So I thought quick hits work, right? Just short films to the point, just let people know what's happening with them with some interesting footage. So that's what I'm working on. Lastly, to kind of, I think, I don't know how long we've been speaking, to close. When I first started thinking, okay, I want to do some wildlife journalism kind of work, I started thinking, okay, now I've been working with primates. I want to do something more substantial. I'm sorry, I just lost my headphones off my ears. I want to do something a little more substantial. When I say substantial, as a photographer, it's very important to have a good body of work, a good variety of body of work. When I say body of work, not just random pictures from across the world, but preferably a good bunch of stories of species and or maybe even of location and things like that. Really helps to kind of move up the value chain. So then I said I want to do something like this, and I remember speaking to some of my photographer friends that I plan to do something like this, go and shoot in zoos. Some of them were like, "What's wrong with you? You're a wildlife photographer. You go to the wild and shoot." But then I thought it was a story, and there was a good potential for me to educate more people on what's happening. This is crazy, right? Imagine these are all illegally sourced orangutans, completely through illegal wildlife. I mean, putting these orangutans on the stage, making them box. The worst part was when I was in Thailand filming this. there were 200 school children on that day were brought to this place and they were watching. It's really sad, right? I mean, just imagine what these 200 kids are going to think. They're going to think that it's okay to do something like this, right?
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's just lack of awareness. I mean, imagine school kids, 200 of them sitting and enjoying this fight. Not just this. There were so many other pictures where these orangutans were humiliated. I don't even want to show those pictures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are these guys, just like a circus, right? He's pulling the orangutan's pants. He's making this one part where it's almost like literally like he's asking the orangutan to show his private parts and stuff like that, just for the sake of fun. It's humiliating, right? It's another being. It's absolutely miserable. But anyway, so I thought it was worthy of a story. So this was my personal project. It was not a commission project, but again, it helped. I think 7 months down the line after I did this project, there were people who were willing to buy this for publications. So it kind of worked. Even monetarily, it was helpful for me, even though I spent some time there. These are some images I created. This is another one. Again, it's all about perspective. I just wanted to create a more different perspective. So I was shooting all kinds of different frames. So here's another example, right? It's really sad. The kids were having a ball, having fun, but it was just miserable to watch that. Oh, this is another crazy one. I was not allowed to photograph the training of these animals, but I was allowed to see how they're being trained. It's unfortunate. I had to cozy up to some of these guys. Some of these images I had to take without people's knowledge and stuff like that. But when I say I had to cozy up to these guys, I had to act like I love what these guys are doing, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing and stuff like that. You know, basically, I'm against all my wishes. I'm lying just to get some photographs from there. But even after all that, they refused to allow me to shoot behind the scenes training.
Okay.
And what if I tell you they are starved? They use electric shocks.
Oh.
They beat them. They are kept sedated a lot of times. So what happens is when, for example, you catch a monkey like this and come, right? And then you start training. First few months, the monkey is going to fight back.
Yeah.
Because all the monkey knows is, right, you're trying to do something to it and it's going to try and bite you or hurt you or, you know, fight back, right? That's the only response they don't know, because you're trying to make them do things that is very unnatural to them. But then these guys literally break them down. They just break their spirit. It reaches a stage where these animals completely give in. You know, they've lost all hope. They're like, okay, I give up, kinds, you know, hands up. It's like somebody's pointed a gun at you and you just raise your hands and say, okay, what do you want me to do? Tell me, I'll do it for you, kinds. They reach that stage mentally. And that's when they're able to get all these things done. It's crazy. It's really sad. This is another series. This is another one from a mall in Thailand. Imagine a zoo on the 5th floor of a mall. She actually spit on me. Literally, it's like a human being, right? Like the way when we get angry, we spit at people, right? She actually spit on me. That's when I was talking to the vet. There was a vet who was there on the day I was there. So he said she's very disturbed and she's kind of pissed off with people and tired. So every time she sees people, she spits at them. So imagine the mental state of these animals. So again, perspective, right? I was just trying to create images which could kind of create some emotions for people when they see it, right? So that was the intention behind some of these animals. This guy, poor guy, is drugged. I mean, they give them drugs. They even sometimes give them alcohol to kind of keep them in that hazy state, you know. So they kind of listen to you and stuff like that. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to share. But do we have time, Nisha? Can I share a small video if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
just put a video together to kind of sum up a little bit of my journey. Can you see it?
Yes.
You can see it full screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll have to remove my earphones. Only then the audio will be available, I think. Okay, there you go. Thank you. That was the end of the
Oh,
video. Me?
Beautiful, beautiful.
that's so amazing. Especially their
Yeah.
emotions.
Oh, it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. I mean, it's. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Sometimes I'm just short of words.
It's sad how people treat them.
Yeah, but I'm always optimistic. Uh, there are a lot of good things are also happening, so there's always hope.
Yeah, you realize there are only 250 left in this wild, and you still see that one side of the limestone mountains are getting destroyed. It's after seeing it, in your real life, how heartbreaking it will be for you to see it's happening in.
Yeah, um, but the good thing also I think is now with so much of social media, there's so much being shared. There are so many photographers taking amazing pictures. So much. I think the I think what a lot of photographers, even hobbies, and all of us have kind of unknowingly done is educate a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've not deliberately done it. Oh, I'm going to take this picture to educate people, kinds, but in a very subtle, without our own knowledge, we are actually educating people, which is a good thing. So, more the photographers, the merrier it is. So, I hope that more people take up photography. I think it's absolutely amazing hobby, even if it's a hobby. Forget hobby, just I mean, my favorite right now is stuck in Singapore. 5:30 in the morning, I'm at the beach. Every morning, I'm at the beach, and like I was just telling you my style, right? I go to the beach every morning to the same place because I know one day something magical will happen there.
That's true.
I started chasing rainbows now. Then I realized there are birds flying around. Okay, now I'm thinking, wow, how amazing it'll be to catch some birds against the rainbow.
Yeah.
So constantly I'm thinking like this. Then I realized today morning, 6 o'clock, I was at the beach, because along the beach there's a little resort and stuff like that at the beach, and then I see this stunning moon in the sky, absolutely gorgeous moon, very clear moon on the other end, and then there is a tree where gray herons are nesting. The common gray herons are nesting. Now I'm thinking I want to shoot the gray herons with the moon in the background. Kind of go far away and use a telephoto to kind of um, bring the moon closer to the herons kinds,
Yeah.
right? So in my mind, unfortunately, this is how my mind works right now. So everywhere I'm going, I think, maybe I should do something like this, or maybe I'm just telling. So I think I'm always pushing all the people I'm teaching to be more creative. Think outside the box. Don't be happy with the same mundane stuff. Yes, sometimes you have to do the mundane stuff because you don't have a choice for different reasons. But otherwise, if you're creating a portfolio for yourself, I keep writing it. I write my ideas down and I keep thinking. Whenever I get time, I keep looking at them, saying, how the fish am I going to make this happen, kinds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but in the process, we shouldn't forget ethics. I think that's where a lot of people have gone wrong, and I've seen people who had their career map go this way and then go this way overnight. So for all passionate friends who are listening, this is an industry, if I have to be very honest, I don't think many people will say this, very, very hard to build a reputation as a photographer, and it takes a few seconds to lose your reputation as a photographer. That's on one side. On the other side, if you really are a wildlife lover, then obviously nobody needs to tell you anything. You will know what to do. You know where to draw the line. So good luck and enjoy your photography. Yeah, I think we can go on to the Q&A. Otherwise, I'll go on and on. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, this is what we miss in most of the time. What we want people to know is about your experience and how you see things, how you approach things, how you dream, how this get into the reality. That's all about, rather than techniques, because the techniques is there all. You search in online, you get 1,000 videos talking about the aperture, shutter speed, and things. But how do people know what's in Jayaprakash Bojan's mind when he's preparing something for a shoot? This is what is valuable. This is what makes the talk worth.
Actually, honestly, Nisha, I wanted to do a full-fledged session with you guys on storytelling. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
The reason I'm not doing it is because, unfortunately, I'm doing too many of these sessions right now here in Singapore, here, there, and so I don't want it to be repetitive. So actually, the World Photography Club group is there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm doing a hardcore session more focused on my approach of storytelling, right? I mean, how do I look at a story, or how do I? It's like like a producer, right? You're like a producer. How do you produce a story, right? You start thinking of all those things. So I didn't want it to be repetitive, but so that's why I didn't do that. Originally, actually, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then I said, I don't want to mix all the things up, then it's confusing. So.
But
I
people want to learn more from the experience of others.
yes. Everybody.
Absolutely. Interesting fact about storytelling is because every time I talk about storytelling, because I do a lot of sessions on storytelling with the university students over here, like the visual comm students, the filmmaking students and stuff like that. Most people generally, initial assumption is it's not always possible. In a way, they're right from their perspective. But if I have to just define storytelling in a little line, storytelling not necessarily is direct storytelling always. So basically what you're doing is you are setting the stage for the person seeing the picture to make the story for himself. So now the question is, how do you set that stage for the viewers to create that story for themselves. So that
Yeah.
that's what I usually talk about, and how the approach and how to go about and stuff like that. Yeah, sometimes it's direct story, right? Because if you're doing documentary photography, you are actually capturing natural history moment. Okay, there's a direct story, there's something happening. For example, you're shooting action, a hunt sequence. You don't need to tell anything, right? It's a story there, right there.
Yeah.
Animal. But then is it always possible? The general answer is no. But I'm saying yes, it is possible. Um, you just have to think a little differently on going, approaching it. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. In
Sorry,
fact, we would definitely love to do a session. I know you are doing it for multiple platforms, but we would definitely love to do a session completely on storytelling whenever you have time again over here.
what I'm more interested is all of us traveling together sometime somewhere.
Let's hope. Let's hope we.
Once the COVID is down, we plan.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
let's plan it.
Maybe we can take some people who are interested also with us.
Why not? Why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, there are already a couple of people who we got a couple of inquiries already for this. So we said it's going to be only after COVID. So if you are in, then we'll push it. That's going to
Yes.
be an experience.
People have been asking me to take people there for so many years now. Literally, they've been like chasing
I,
me
of
all the time.
course.
But honestly, I'm in a way I'm very blessed. Um, as a photographer, another piece of input I want to give is, if you really want to move up the value chain, since most of us already have the photography skills because we've been doing wildlife photography and stuff like that, another area to explore is environment. There's tremendous potential. You'll be surprised. A lot of corporates are moving the eco way. So there's even tremendous potential for photographers to do storytelling around environment for corporates and stuff like that. I've done last few years. I've been doing stories for some organizations here around future of food, future of water, future of agriculture, um, um, coexistence. These are all very topics, but the fact is there are not many people who know how to do these kind of areas, because it's very conceptual in nature, right? For example, one of my commissioned work that I did was, they said, give me 15 pictures on coexistence. They said, me give me 15 pictures on the future of water. Okay, now the question is, okay, now future of, what do I do with future of water? Right, then you start thinking, you sit, you figure out what's happening on the water sea in Singapore, where are we getting the water from? You kind of learn everything, and then you start figuring out, now how do you convert all your ideas into photographs? So I've been doing a lot of work on those areas. Unfortunately, I prefer to keep my social media very wildlife focused, so I don't share those pictures. Because those pictures are more boring to most wildlife lovers, because it's more wildlife, it's more but there's tremendous potential there.
Yeah.
Look at it, Nisha. 10 years ago, if you and I put a picture on social media of some birds in a dump yard, right? People would laugh at us because everybody wanted this amazing clean bouquet and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Things have changed. Now a photograph of a bird in a dump yard has more value than an amazing portrait of amazing species, right? Because people like National Geographic and BBC no longer care about your amazing portraits, but now everybody wants pictures of what's happening to our environment, right? So things change.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, do we have any questions for me,
Uh,
or can I go and
Yeah,
sleep?
question. I got only one. I got one question regarding the equipment. What type of
Okay.
carry with you? As I understand, these explorations involve a lot of trekking and hiking. That's from
Okay.
Paul Manula.
Okay, so Paul, very simple answer. I used to be. I started my digital photography in terms of DSLR kind of photography with Sony. I think when I was using Sony, nobody even knew that Sony used to make DSLRs. I was a Sony Alpha user to start with. Alpha 36, Alpha 37, Alpha 77, Alpha 99. I think mine was the first 100-400 G series Sony lens. Then, which I paid for it, and after 8 months, they got me the lens because the World Cup was happening at that time, and Sony had just launched the lens. I still remember I was in Bandipo, and one day, and I met Sudhir. Sudhir was like, "What is this in your hand?" So anyway, it was some interesting times when me and Sudhir and we all had met at that time. But from there, I switched to Canon because in India did not have Sony lenses, so there was no support system for me. Though I come from a Sony family, my whole family swears by Sony. From those days, the TV has to be Sony, Walkman has to be Sony. Everything they buy, they think Sony is the best. So I had that influence in life. But anyway, so then I realized I was not able to get any equipment that I wanted. So I switched to Canon. I used Canon for a while. But in the last 3.5, 4 years, I switched to Olympus. And there's a reason why I switched to Olympus. A lot of people ask me, a lot of people even told me, oh, that's the end of your career. Everybody's moving towards full frame cameras. And what's wrong with you? You're going to a micro four third sensor. It's even smaller than your cropped sensor, right? That's when I keep telling people, I meet these National Geographic and BBC and some of these guys who are still shooting with like 5D Mark III. It's only a lot of us who have a lot of money. We're so crazy equipment focused. We want to buy all the latest equipment. But honestly, some of the really super pros, right? They're still using the age-old equipment to shoot and still creating incredible images. Anyways. So right now I'm an Olympus user. I mostly carry Olympus, and another reason why I also moved to Olympus was mobility, because most of my trips are on foot. So I wanted something light. At the same time, I wanted something which had reasonably good image quality, where I can still print large prints and stuff like that. Obviously, a smaller sensor is not going to give you similar results like some of the largest sensors. There's a little bit of a compromise, but it works. Now I don't miss frames. Earlier, by the time I set up my tripod, put my Canon 600, focus on the animal, and shoot, half the time those animals have disappeared. Right?
Yeah.
At least in my world, because I'm shooting in a different space. Yeah. But I love all brands. Okay. I also have other brand cameras and all that. Sometimes I use it depending on the kind of purpose, but predominantly I use Olympus. They're very small, easy to travel, easy to carry, and easy to photograph. And I think they have one of the best IBIS or IBIS technology in the world. In fact, the Sonys of the world, Canon of the world, they all basically learned from Olympus in terms of their stabilization technology. So they're like the pioneers and stuff. And also they are into optics for donkey's years. They make precision optics. That means pretty much all the optics used in all hospitals are manufactured by Olympus. Your endoscope machines, the camera and the tape through which they do all the operations, all kinds of stuff. So they're like super experts on optics. So they have some of the best optics. I think camera-wise, I think probably they're still trying to improve. So you know what I'm saying, right? We have better lenses, but we don't have cameras sometimes which don't match our lenses.
Yeah.
But I think there's tremendous progress happening. Hopefully things will change soon. But yeah, so I prefer lighter gear these days. So because for me it's really not about ISO, noise performance, all that honestly really doesn't matter so much, honestly. Most publications don't care so much about it.
Yes. Yeah, it's not about the gear, it's not about the brand, it's about the image, and it's about what you see in the frame.
Yeah, obviously it shouldn't be like really bad, it shouldn't be like really bad quality image or unusable, right?
Yeah.
There's always a compromise.
I have one more question from Mithun Narayan. as a photographer, what we can do to protect those wild animals from harsh and making them as a performance subject.
That's right.
You mean like the photo that I was sharing in the end? Or
Yeah.
In occasions
oh,
like that.
yeah. I mean, it's a lot of people ask me, how can I, one person sitting somewhere in the corner of the world, make the change, right? Imagine if everybody thought like that, right? Then nothing will happen in this world, right? Sometimes we have to take it upon ourselves and say, I don't care what other people think, but I want to see how I can make a difference. Yeah, people around you, some of them may laugh at you, some of them may try to bring you down. Doesn't really matter, right? End of the day, it's you and your relationship to the world. So it's for you to decide what you want to do. So you can make a difference. If you ask me, how often do we go and like images like this on the internet today? We don't. How often we go and we share images like this today in the internet? We don't. But what you and I would share, a beautiful portrait of a tiger. Oh, amazing backlit shot. Who cares about the amazing backlit shot of the tiger? Yes, it's a brilliant image. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not a bad image, right? So I think our attitude towards how we look at the environment and the animals need to change. Only then our behavior will change. The way we look at things will change. So I think every person can make a difference. You can make a difference. For example, if you want to save orangutans, stop eating palm oil products for now. For example, how many of you like Nutella? I used to love Nutella, right? Nutella and bread used to be my favorite, right? I stopped eating Nutella because it's directly related to impacting the orangutans. There are so many. I mean, so many things you can do. Simple things like this you can do. How can you help? I mean, it could be as simple as you using stop using single-use plastic can make a difference. Um, um, buying
Carrying
less. I mean,
less,
yeah,
recycling, and carrying.
recycling, right? I mean, even sharing, right? A lot of times people like you and me, we cannot all of a sudden influence millions of people. But what can JP do? I can influence my wife, I can influence my son, and I can influence 6 friends around me, right? That's how the human chain works. And what
Yes.
those 6 friends can do, they can influence 6 friends around them, right? So that's how education happens. That's how messages spread. That's how we teach people, right? So don't worry about if things are going to change or not.
Yes.
You should worry about, can you impact your immediate circle? If
Yes.
you can do that, you've done your job. You're already saving the orangutans, if you ask me. If you can
Yes.
just influence 5 people around you, that is more than enough. You are already making a positive impact on saving something somewhere.
Very true.
Very.
Now we have a question from Narendas. What is the
Usually, I
scope of
don't like answering these questions, because it sounds like gyan stuff. I usually shy away from giving gyan kinds.
No, but
what,
it is truth.
what is the scope of photographer as a profession?
I'm sorry, what was that? I'm sorry again.
What is the scope of primate photographer as a profession?
I think there is. I mean, there is really no profession as a primate photographer. So I call myself as a nature photographer. I don't call myself a primate photographer or a bird photographer, and I also call myself an artist. And the reason I call myself an artist is because I don't want to just be a documentary photographer who's basically documenting whatever is happening, right? Even if you're shooting in the wild, predominantly you're documenting what's happening over there. So I also consider myself as a visual artist, because if you can bring your visual artist in you and combine it with your documentary skills and put them together, it's a killer combination, right? So that will probably help you get better. So maybe your question should be more: is there a good career for wildlife photographers in the market today?
Yeah.
Can we become? This is the most commonly asked questions. Um, I wish I had a direct answer for it. Unfortunately, no. And the reason I say that is because when you're shooting as a hobbyist, it's different. When you're shooting full time, it's different. I know I have friends who are brilliant photographers with absolutely no other skills, and they're struggling in their lives today. And these are amazing wildlife photographers. I also have friends who are very average photographers, according to me, but have brilliant marketing skills, who are doing amazing today. So look at the comparison, right? A guy who's a brilliant photographer struggling, a guy with a average photographer but great marketing skills doing very well. So if you ask me today, just buying passion for photography is not going to help. If you really want to make a career in photography, it's just like going back to your corporate world. You need all the other skills. You need the leadership skills, you need the communication skills, you need the networking skills, you need all of that which you had in your corporate days. You need to come back and use all of them along with your photography skills if you want to survive. It's a combination of several things.
Yeah,
So
marketing is extensively important, and yeah, me and Hermi, we really understand that the photography part is,
absolutely,
yeah, you can share your passion, you can share education, but then when it comes to generating a revenue, we know how difficult it is.
it is difficult, right? See, the problem is, like, there were some meetings where I went with some of the my conservation folks. The general mindset of people is like that. People think conservation happens for free. People think conservation means wearing chappals, wearing pajama kurta, torn clothes, and growing. So they were surprised when they saw some of us like super cool dressed. They were like, "Oh, you are a conservationist." So see, that's the problem, because generally people have predetermined ideas as to conservation means like this, photographer means like this. I mean, it doesn't work that
Yeah.
way, right? So
Yes.
a lot of people want to save the world, but we cannot save the world unless people come forward and also put money there. And that is the toughest part. Most conservation people have, they have the people, they have the skills, but most of them struggle with money.
And do you get this question? I mean, this is one question I mean, we always get. It's like, can I become your assistant? I mean, I'm tired of
uh,
answering that one.
well, honestly, it's probably one of my most frequently asked questions. Even yesterday, I got
Even
some email
today.
from I got an email from a very rich kid in Gujarat. He said, "Sir, I don't want money from you. I don't want anything." He said, "I have a lot of money, but I just want to be with you."
Yeah. So
So,
it's like,
so I told him, "Why do you want to be with me?" I said, "Why do you want to be my assistant?" Yeah, if you want to learn, there are several ways of learning. I can teach you. You can probably come on my trips. I can teach you and stuff like that. But you don't have to become like me. You can be better than me. I mean, don't think small. Don't think big, right? Think big. Visualize something larger. It will happen, right? So,
yeah.
uh, yeah. I mean, but this is a profession where you really have to be crazy to be in this profession.
Yeah.
um, it's different when it's a hobby. It's a different pressure when it is bread and butter. It's a completely different pressure when it's bread and butter.
Yeah.
So my suggestion to most newcomers is, everybody wants to become a photographer the next day. I tell them, take it slow, let it
Yeah.
be a hobby, find a regular job, let the job support your hobby for some time. 5 years, 6 years, 7 years down the line, if you still think you have that drive which you are asking me right now, then maybe you can think about taking it to the next level. Another thing is, I stopped putting pictures of me with my camera lenses and all that stuff online these days. And I also tell some of my friends, it's very misleading when we show off all our equipment online with all our photos. And the reason I say that is also because a lot of these new age gets are disappointed because they cannot afford that gear. And generally they think, oh, if we don't have those kind of gear, we cannot become photographers. But you can be an artist just shooting in your backyard. You
Yeah.
don't need it. So sometimes I feel we putting all those posy pictures with the cameras is very, very misleading for the new generation, because everybody thinks get there, this is what we need to do, right? There are two ways people learn, right? Through what they hear and what they see.
Yeah.
This is how all of us learn, and that's what they see.
Yes.
So they think that's what they need. That's what they need for them to become photographers. So we're actually sending the wrong message. So I deliberately now decided in the last, you will no longer see any of my pictures with like cameras and all this. I mean, I very rarely put them online
In
now.
fact, we got a question based on that. Just now I received a question saying, from Dr. Said, wildlife photography needs time and funds. How can an average person afford it unless and otherwise somebody sponsors it? How can anybody proceed with this to fulfill the desire? That's a
So
misconception.
desire is possible. Desire is possible, but then you have to think like a businessman and not as a photographer if you want to make that desire happen. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, let me just break it down, simplify it for you guys, right? If you want to be a full-time photographer, that basically means your main source of income is going to come through photography. Step one. Step two. Okay. Why should somebody give you the work? That question you need to answer for yourself.
Yes.
Okay, why should somebody give me the work? Amongst all the photographers out there today, why should somebody give me the work? To answer that question, basically your answer will be, okay, that means one, I need to have a great portfolio.
Yeah.
Two, I should have tremendous online presence today on social media. Three,
Yes.
I've earned that credibility, and the credibility doesn't happen overnight. To build that credibility, it takes on an average 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 years. So it's not A plus B. It's not 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. It's a completely different formula altogether. But it's possible. But you just have to be really passionate, crazy, and willing to let go of a lot of luxuries in the process.
Yeah.
I can give you so many examples, even in India. I mean, a simple example would be, even look at the likes of Kalyan Verma. Quite inspiring if you look at the story, right? What he did, he started working in all the national parks as a guide. Today, he's a preferred natural history filmmaker in the country. Anytime BBC wants to do anything, he's the first person of choice. So that's the key, right? So I keep telling all my people, right? Try and be a good naturalist first before becoming a wildlife photographer.
Yeah, Kalyan, Dhriman, everybody is like on your face.
Yeah, because they are more naturalists, less photographers. Yeah, they do photography. They are good photographers, but they're also amazing naturalists because these guys have spent so much time not chasing fame or not chasing Facebook likes or Instagram growth. They just spent hours and hours on binoculars, not cameras. Just watching.
Their good thing is they started before Facebook or Instagram came.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? I mean, there are a lot of inspiring stories. It's possible. It's definitely possible. I mean, I don't want to people to feel that, oh, this really not possible. It is possible, but then you should be passionate enough. It's going to be tough. In my case, first 2 years was very shaky. I was even in two minds. I was like, did I make the right move? Maybe I should go back to the corporate. Maybe I should go back because at the same time I was thinking, if I give too much of a gap, then it'll be difficult for me to go back to the corporate world.
Yeah.
So I was constantly thinking, am I doing right? I don't know if it'll work out or not. So maybe I should go back and stuff like that. But for newcomers, I would say don't rush. Personal opinion, try and get financially stable, and then try and switch to a career like this if you really want to. Don't rush. It's very important.
That's true, because we personally face this questions quite often. It's not a steady income. It's not like you're working for somebody and someone is giving you for your living. So there are months where we really struggle, and there are months where we manage. So it's always a roller coaster. Even it's for me and Hermie with Postals. It's for photography it's almost 11 years, and for Postals it's 6 years plus now. But if you're talking about the stability, it's a long way. But
it's a
then,
long way. See, I mean, it's always going to be like that. Yeah,
yes,
yeah. I mean,
you have to do
even
what matters.
there are no wildlife photographer jobs anywhere in the world today.
Yes,
Probably even 10 years ago, people like National Geographic and BBC had so many people on their payroll. Now everything is freelance. Yeah, there is preferred. For example, they call them preferred filmmaker for Natgeo or a preferred photographer. That means if there is a job, you get priority over the others kinds.
yeah,
Yes.
Hardly anybody is on the payroll. Now it's even worse because Disney took over National Geographic now. Fox Asia, everything. Disney is kind of taking everything together one umbrella. Their leadership is changing. Everything is changing. Already, a lot of people in Hong Kong and some of the National Geographic Asia locations are all scared they're going to lose jobs, stuff like that. So it's again, I know all of us have this impression about National Geographic and all that. End of the day, it's still just like any corporate. It's a corporate. It's a machinery. It's people, office, admins, CEO. It's the same model. Yeah, but don't be disheartened. If you really want to be one, you will be one. You will become one. You will figure out a way.
yeah.
If
That's
you
again, as he said. It's a long journey. It's not an overnight thing.
Yeah, long journey with lots of disappointments. If you're willing to overcome those disappointments, there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. There is scope. Definitely there's scope. But like I said, you should be willing to diversify. For example, if you look at what they're doing, right? They started Paw Trails, they started a training institute. They've started so many other avenues. In my case, if you see, in the last 2 years, I'm spending more time doing more other kind of environment focused work. So that's where my education, my 19 years in corporate is actually helping me do some of the other work. Because if for subjects like this, you also need to have some understanding of the subject,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
The questions kind of, yeah.
Sorry if it was a very disappointing answer.
No,
No,
no, it's
no.
not. Even being true and is that what matters. You need to. There is no way to butter things or polish things and presenting it doesn't. It's not going to help. The reality is reality.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if you, I can be honest and tell you, the last project I did was Jan. I was in Japan for a project with the Ministry of Tourism in Japan. That was my last project. After that, how many months now? I have a,
9 months.
I have a mobile phone project I'm working on next week, and I think I sold 2 prints. So technically, I've literally made peanuts in the last 6 months.
No, so it's the same situation today
Yeah,
when I'm doing a project on 365 days and someone was so desperate asking me to sponsor. My reality is I moved to a new country, completely new place. The plan was to set up something over here and COVID hit. It's 9 months in a new place. I have absolutely no idea. As you mentioned, 2 prints sold and a couple of projects going on. Absolutely, our very, very, very little financial support. Honestly,
absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know how we survive, and it's maybe Mother Nature or something, some miracles happens to survive. It's just to float. That is the reality. But how do we explain this to people is one thing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the last question, right?
Yeah.
Because I hear a lot of people saying, see, when it comes to awards and competitions, right? There's two sides. I see this one side of the people who are against it, and there's one side who are all for it. Uh, but for me, I would say competitions is not a bad thing. Yeah, there's always going to be some people who want to crib because they couldn't win or they couldn't make it. So I can't help it. So we can't help it. But you figure out a way for your own success. So there's absolutely nothing wrong in participating in competitions. Don't expect to win always. I'm still hoping someday I will win NIPA and I'll settle down in life, at least for a few years. For a few years, I don't have to work and I'll just settle down. You know what I'm saying? But you never know. So yeah, so go for it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Some of
Yeah, I
the
think competitions
good
you can
tenured,
collect money.
yeah, no, some of the good mature tenured awards, they really help, move you up the value chain. They kind of probably add value to your existing reputation. Especially if you're social media savvy, it helps you with your social media numbers. Yeah, some people even say, oh, I don't care about my social media numbers. But most people who say I don't care about my social media numbers are the most who care about their social media numbers. So, anyway, guys, don't get upset with me. If anybody is upset with what I just said, I'm just having fun with.
We got the response. Very harsh truth, but truly inspiring as well.
It's
I'm just having fun with Nisha and. Yeah.
it is truth. It is. This is the life of the patient. You see, you can pretend, but how long do you pretend? And what do
Yeah.
you get out of pretending? You be yourself. That's what makes you as a person.
I mean, it's simple, right? I mean, I'm just trying to help as many people as possible because everybody wants to be a photographer. There's nothing wrong with that. As much as possible, I'm trying to teach. I'm trying to give them ideas. Especially, I take keen interest when people just in college or fresh out of college come with these questions. It's because sometimes I'm scared that if I don't give them the right answer, somebody else will give them the wrong answer. Then they will end up, messing up. So I'm like, sometimes a little worried. I'm like, no, I think I should at least give this guy some direction so that this guy doesn't screw up things. So then I tell them, boss, don't even think about it. I'm like, you studying, please study, find a good job. So I said, even if you're talking about equipment, these days it's all, you need at least like $5,000, $6,000 to even like have a decent starter kit and all that. So I said, not worth it. Just study, find a job, continue a hobby. What kit do you have? Continue as a hobby. If you want, I'll give you ideas on what you can shoot with the existing lens and camera you have. So I just have an idea with it. 5 years, 6 years down the line, you come back and if you tell me I still want to do this only, then maybe we can take it to the next level. So I always tell these guys because I'm just, that's what I'm saying, right? Because as photographers, sometimes a lot of us just show off online all the time. And
Yeah.
people get carried away by all the wrong stuff we show off online,
Yeah.
right? Because most people today, if you see youngsters want to become wildlife photographers because they think it is cool, not because they like wildlife photography or not because they really love nature or anything. They just find it cool to carry a big lens and just walk around. It's like the cool quotient. I'm a wildlife photographer, right? It's like a big status symbol, but the fact is, it is not.
Yeah, whenever this equipment kind of questions come, we always say, whether it is me or Hermi, I started with a D80 and a Sigma 18200, and that was our gear for almost 1.5 or 2 years. And we talk about the days where we used to crawl through the dirt, through the mud, and wait for hours and hours to get one tiny bird to get closer. But then that gives you the control over your gear. That makes you realize how passionate you are to this particular thing. It's not, you come on the all of a sudden and go for a 500 or a 600 with a high end camera. That doesn't happen. I know people who bought 600 400 and keep this in their cupboard and later on said that it got fungus. I don't know what to do. I'm serious. This happened in my personal life. We came across
Ask instead they can fund you and me for some projects.
this happened in real life, not in one
Yeah.
occasion. Okay,
No, I
so
agree. I mean, I've seen so many cases myself. I distinctly I can't say his name on now
no, no,
right now. He'll be upset with me. I mean, he's a good friend of mine, but he'll call me immediately if I say his name. So he was so fascinated looking at all my pictures, and he's like, "Hey, Macha, so many people you have followers now. Everybody's liking, commenting, and all that stuff." Very well-to-do guy. Oh no, I'm coming on to guy. Went. got 1DX Mark II, got 600 got everything. One trip he came. End of the trip, he's telling me, Machan, I don't think I'm cut out for this. Da. I can't do this. I'm like, dude, you just spent like $15,000 to come and tell me after one trip that this is not something that you're cut out for. All because what happened? He got bitten by leeches. I'm sure if he's listening to me right now, he's cursing me for saying this.
I'm sure the people whom we are referring is not seeing. I hope they're not seeing this either. Yeah, but that's a reality. We see people who really dream for one small gear to begin their journey, and we see people who just take gears and keep it in their cupboard and don't use it and spoil it.
True.
But that is the
Okay.
way. It's not just this, anything. I know it's
It
too
is.
late for you.
Yeah,
sorry?
let him sleep, please.
Yeah, the previous night I went to bed at 1 o'clock in the night, and then 5 o'clock I was out. Today morning again, 5 o'clock I was out.
But it was a great session, JP.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
honestly, I have no visibility into who the audience is, or even there is an audience. But for me, it was more like just chatting with you guys. So
Let's hope we will do this in real time, real life.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, thank you guys.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for
Thank you so much.
a good chat, good session, good time. Whoever was listening, hope it was of some use to them, and catch up with you guys again soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah, sure.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Oh, that was a spectacular session. It was such a heart-to-heart talk.
Interesting. It's all to talk to him. Like
Yes.
a lot of things comes.
Yeah. That's one reason I was keep on telling in my Instagram or in all these days, you need to listen to this. So in case if somebody is missing it, please, guys, whoever is here, please do share it among your circle, because that's going to help others to learn this.
Yeah.
So
That's all for today. We'll be back on Wednesday with a wonderful exhibition on astro, and you will have a session on masterclass on astrophotography as well. Wait for it. We'll be publishing it tomorrow morning.
Great.
The complete details.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay then.
Okay
Bye.
then. So guys, see you on Wednesday with another fabulous session.
Yes.